I'd like to welcome you to the study session for the August 24th, 2022 regular meeting of the Governing Board. Tonight we will be hearing about the Portrait of a Learner update, and Dr. Wendy Nance, the Associate Director of Human Resources and Community Services, and Abby Druck, Director of Professional Pathways, will provide an update on the progress of Portrait of a Learner meetings. Dr. Nance.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We're excited to bring back to you the outcome of the committee that was formed. Back in spring, if you'll recall, we came to you with the proposal that we were going to be working on what we called then Portrait of a Graduate. As it moved through our committee, it gradually became Portrait of a Learner because we wanted it to definitely apply to all ages and not just our seniors. So to start with, I'd like to just remind you of the why of this work.
Innovation's rate of change has increased by 97% from 40 years to 18 months. We've made the doing more time conscious, within reach. And changed what used to take hours of human time to minutes. Self-serve and hands-free have diversified how we experience life. While automation made differentiation for human needs accessible. Innovation requires individuality. Innovation is a social process. Innovation occurs when people are allowed time and environments to think, to dream, to take risks and triage their failures. Try new things. Collaborate. And learn. CUSD, Elements of a Learner, Interdependent Skills for the Individual Student.
So tonight, we'd like to share with you the final product and the process that we went through. As a reminder, we partnered with Battelle for Kids, who is nationally known. It's a nonprofit organization and works with school districts across the United States on developing and implementing this Portrait of a Learner and the characteristics that will help our kids once they leave us and move out into the world on whichever pathway that they're interested in. So I'm going to turn the time over to Abby Druck, our Director of Human Resources, who's going to walk you through what that process looked like and who was involved.
Okay, thank you so much for your time tonight. We want to provide a little overview of the process of the meetings that we went through to arrive at the final results and elements that were selected for CUSD. Some of you had the opportunity to participate. We had 4 meetings spread from February through May. The first 3 were live in person, and then the final one, we had a virtual meeting to finalize all of our details. The first meeting really kind of gave people an opportunity to just learn about what our goals were, what kind of skills we were going to be looking into, and then gradually moved into more detail at each meeting. There were opportunities to give feedback along the way. I also want to kind of give you a picture of who was involved in giving feedback. So there was approximately 100 people on the committee. We had 40 representatives from outside the district, so external people, 40 staff members, and 20 students. Within that group, the selection was very intentional to provide diversity so that we could make sure we were gathering opinions and feedback representative of the entire district. So that included differences in gender, age, ethnicity, work experience, excuse me. Some were alumni of the district, some not, different religions, languages, representatives from the different quadrants in our district. Some were parents, some business partners, different people from colleges in our areas. Even within the staff members that we selected, we made sure that we were picking some people that represent the administrative group. We had several support staff there, teachers, just a wide variety to make sure that we were inclusive of our community. So throughout those 4 meetings, as we started to discuss the different things that our constituents value and decide which we want represented in our portrait of a learner, by the end, we were all in agreement on the 6 elements at that May meeting. However, we did discover after the virtual meeting and some more feedback that we had some questions on a couple of the elements. So to make sure that we weren't just going forward with further decisions without gathering feedback, we went ahead and sent out another survey to collect data on those 2 elements and to ensure that we were representing the group, because the next part I'm going to show you is what we decided on, and it was important to us that everybody's feedback was given in those decisions so that we could collectively support our next steps. Okay, so next we're going to go over the portrait of our learner that was established through those 4 meetings. Our first element is adaptability. You'll notice that the definitions are pretty concise. What we did was take some kind of wide range ideas of the different meanings that could be included under our elements, and then narrow them down to what we want to define them in CUSD as. So making sure that the common language that we establish right now is going to be consistent throughout how we apply these elements in our work and with students, so that everybody has that common vocabulary, a clear understanding of what exactly we're intending when we discuss the elements. So the first one was adaptability. And we discussed being flexible, overcoming barriers, demonstrating resilience, and adjusting to challenging conditions and change. Again, using the feedback to narrow it down for collaboration, we came to valuing other people's input, owning a team decision, working cohesively towards common goals, balancing individual goals with group goals, and contributing respectfully when sharing ideas. Next is communication. So we discussed the importance of being an active listener, developing a responsible digital footprint, adapting to the needs of your audience, and articulating thoughts through written, oral, and nonverbal skills. For critical thinking, our team agreed upon asking questions, persevering through problems to find a solution, identifying, defining, and solving authentic problems, collect, assess, and analyze relevant information, and finally reflecting on learning experiences, processes, and solutions. For empathy, the final definition came to seek to understand, demonstrate compassion and concern for others, and respect and connect with others' feelings, opinions, and culture. And our final element is global citizen, being literate in technology and communication skills, demonstrate civic responsibility, apply learning to real-world situations, empower self and others to make a difference in local and world community, and then value and respect the diverse cultures and perspectives. So again, in that process from very widespread definitions and everybody coming together with their thoughts and opinions, we broke into small groups to narrow down what we thought was essential for CUSD to develop our common vocabulary. And at the final piece, we came down to 2 elements that we had some questions on, and those are the ones that we then reviewed with a further survey to finalize the definitions. Again, we want them to be digestible for students too, so hoping that the common language is going to help them have a clear understanding of how to apply the skills. The ultimate goal of adopting the portrait of a learner is so that when our students leave us and they leave CUSD and go out into the world, they have the option of what started as 3 E's. And then with feedback throughout the process, we ended up adding a 4th E. So we want them to have the power to enroll, be employed, enlist, or become entrepreneurs. And we had kind of a widespread discussion about the fact that many of us do more than one of these things. So our hope for our students is they have choice and voice when they leave us in determining what their path is post K-12, and hopefully many of them will choose more than one. And here is some feedback from some of our participants.
Well, my name is Henry Kofoid, and my role was a student on the committee.
My name is Riley Williams, and I served as a teacher and a former Chandler Unified student.
My name is Caleb Davidson. I attended Castile High School, class of 2022.
Hi, I'm Karen Meyer, and I'm a community member. My name is Jane Anderson, and I was on the committee primarily because I am the communication director for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Chandler. Typically, districts might just bring together teachers, or they might just bring together parents. But to have all those different voices in one place allowed us in real time to react and kind of receive feedback and adjust maybe what our expectations are, or kind of things that we might not have considered, so that we can move forward in a united way. Well, I was a little nervous when I first walked in because it was a big room filled with tables and lots of people that I didn't necessarily know, but it was so convenient because there was a seating chart and I sat with a group of people that they were so wonderful, and it was a very diverse crowd. We had a principal, another community member, a student, another teacher, and it was just great conversation.
I thought it was a wonderful experience, for a student like me to give the opportunity to voice his opinion about, how school in the Chandler district has affected me as a person up to today. And I thought it was very special to, be there on behalf of Castillo, and not only that, on behalf of all students, who, going into school on a daily basis. And I thought it was a great experience. I love, getting to work with other people, getting to see 2 points of view, students' point of view and teachers' point of view, and some teachers who are professors, college students, and just even your everyday parents. I thought it was a really cool experience.
We always had input, and we were able to work with Colin, I believe his name was, and he always asked our input, and our group always responded, so that I felt like we were heard. And those words, they might sound very simple, but we had a great big list to pick out of, and everybody narrowed those words down with reasons, and will be so beneficial for the students going forward.
I think when we were talking about the 6 different elements, I was reflecting on my experience and thinking, how was I prepared to go to college or prepared to do whatever I chose to do? There was opportunities that I had in high school that I think being a part of clubs that really promoted leadership helped me, but now having the portrait of a learner, I think having different attributes that we are spread across the entire campus and not just limited to certain clubs can help everyone no matter what path they take.
I think it will help them, as far as the next step of just college, but then another further step, becoming, whether you have a job, becoming a parent, all that stuff. I think it helps students prepare for anything in life.
I have a child that's in a self-contained classroom. His name's Maddie. He's at Perry High School. He's blind. He has cerebral palsy, has epilepsy. Even within those 6 values that were created, I could see ways for him to grow and learn.
I just think it helped kids to learn that compassion and empathy can help make a difference in other people's lives.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Nance for next steps.
We by no means have all of the next steps that are taking place, but I want to outline some to you that are already in progress and some opportunities and input as we move forward. So first of all, we've already shared our portrait of a learner with our administrators and our support and certified staff at our back to school meetings. As we are tweaking and preparing our strategic plan update, we are implementing this portrait of a learner under our prepared students areas, so we ensure they are prepared for the 4 E's. And so this is going to be a vital component and actually the center of that division in our plan. We have roadshows that we're developing to go out to sites to dig deeper in the understanding of all of our staff, both certified and support and administrative, so they understand what these elements are, what they mean, how we can model them, how we can implement them and embed them into the curriculum, and how we can move forward with it. We are partnering with our marketing and communication office on branding and communication that will go out to our city, our businesses, our parents, and our stakeholders, so everyone has a clear understanding of the characteristics that we want our students to leave with. We're partnering with the City of Chandler and the Chamber on implementing and getting word out to businesses so we can partner with them. We already do a lot with career and technical education, but part of this, especially when you're talking about real world experiences, how can we get mentors in, how can we get guest speakers in, how can we get internships, apprenticeships established. There's opportunities we already have, for instance, with Dell and with Footprint at some of our schools, where they are partnering with our individual sites on projects that are going on that embed these skills for our students. We also have some additional things that we'll be looking at. Obviously, we're going to want to figure out how to measure this, and so we know our students are really learning these skills that we're going to be talking about. So there's different things that committees and stakeholders will be meeting on to discuss, because there's a variety of ways and we want to make sure it fits. It doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all, but some of the examples could be a rubric that we score progress on. It could be some culminating capstone project. It could be a communication project that's out. It could be partnering with a specific business at a grade level and working on outcomes there. So we'll continue to work on those as we move forward. In addition, we are continually working with our stakeholders after we go out on roadshows to get ideas from them on how they see they can best implement it, what resources, support would they need, what further training. Within our professional development, we are now tagging examples of these 6 elements, and so we can model for our teachers themselves on ways that they can implement it in the classroom through their own actions or opportunities that they can offer our students. And then I wanted to invite Dr. Edgar up here, because our curriculum and instruction department will be working on some of our curriculum maps and identifying things within our state standards that already incorporate some of these skills. So she's going to give you a little sneak peek.
Good evening. So I wanted to share with you this evening, we rewrote all of our, I should say really revamped our ELA and math, pre-K-12 maps last year. And with the review and revamp, what we have here, just to kind of show you what's at the bottom, we have this is an ELA 3rd grade map. We have our ELA, which is English Language Arts, and ELP, which is English Language Proficiency Standards at a glance. So we have that overview. Next, we also have a yearly overview of what all the teachers are going to utilize throughout their time in the classroom. So we broke it down by quarter as well. So we had, to begin with, ELA, ELP standards at a glance, the yearly overview, and then our quarters. So we broke it down by quarters as well. And I want to give you that baseline piece to show you, because what we did is when we found out that there were 6 elements of Portrait of a Learner, we said, how can we add these into what we're already doing to provide that model and that instructional foundation so that moving forward we can have organic conversations and the teachers can be part. So it becomes part of the daily conversation because it's already embedded in these maps. So we are looking at doing this with every single one of our pre-K-12 ELA maps. We're hoping to just start with ELA and then see where we go. Not to create it for everybody, because what will happen is when it's enacted in the classroom, we'll have a better idea of what really is the best alignment coming from the teachers. Teachers really have the power to make this work, and they're already making connections right now.
Can I
so
interrupt
as you
real quick?
see,
Please don't use initials, because you lose me.
yes, so at the beginning, English Language Arts, English Language Proficiency, and I will make sure that I don't use any acronyms, Mr. Worth. Thank you. So right here we have all of the elements. There are 6 elements, as you have just been shown by Dr. Nance as well as Ms. Druck here. So we have the Portrait of a Learner piece here, Portrait of a Learner competencies or elements, adaptability, collaboration, critical thinking, communication, empathy, and global citizen. You'll see the marked icons right here, as well as the definitions created by the stakeholder group right here. On the right-hand side, you have English Language Arts Anchor Standards, which we have reading literature, reading informational, speaking and listening, writing, and language. So you have the actual standard right there that links to this piece over here, which is adaptability. So this one's read carefully to determine what the text says explicitly and to make logical inferences from it. You don't need to know that. That's a standard that teachers use very often. We wanted to make sure that in the yearly overview that we have here, you'll see that there's a correlation to the Portrait of a Learner elements that are red, or that light red color, I should say. So it's not in every single lesson or every single standard, but at this point in time, just having our coaches look at it and taking that first initiative to model some of these pieces where there is interconnectivity between Portrait of a Learner elements and what we already do, we have the year at a glance. But we also want to make sure that this just wasn't a document, that we also provided a resource. So as we scroll down, at the bottom, we have a resource sentence starter card. And I want to show you what that looks like. Because we wanted to provide a resource for our teachers to just fall back on that is also research-based and just, in my words, it's fantastic. But, we'll see if it's used in the classroom, because that will tell us if the teachers are using it, it really is fantastic. Or they'll say, hey, we need something different. So I'm going to try to zoom in here for you. So note, I'm going to have to do some scrolling. But it takes every one of the elements of the 6 Portrait of a Learner elements. This is the first one, discussion. It takes the definition at the top that has been created by the stakeholder group with the bullet points. I do want to give Dr. Kate Kinsella her credit where credit is due. We've modified this from one of our fantastic English language learner professors that has come out and done some training. So she said we could use this with her permission and make sure we tell everybody we adapted it. So at the bottom, we have sentence frames for academic discussion. So this is a 3rd grade map that we showed you, and this would be a 3rd grade card. So we would have to adapt it depending on the developmental place in which we insert this, whether it be high school, junior high. But we have just some sentence frames for academic discussion. So we think that this particular card, it can be a tent card, it could be something that's in their desk, on their laptop, in their Google Classroom, to just start with. So agreeing and disagreeing really adds to discussion when you're having those Socratic seminars or the discussions in the class. How can we use some of these sentence starters? Building on an idea, how can we use some of these bullet points? It's really just to start a starting spot. We don't think they'll stay there. We think they're going to just, when the teachers get this in their hands, they're going to start making those connections. And so that it does become this part of the CUSD culture, the Portrait of a Learner elements. So I wanted to share that with you this evening, and I'm going to hand it back to Dr. Nance.
I would tell you the most fun part, we can say fun, it was working with the committee on just having such a diverse group. It was great when we were focusing on the 4 E's to have people from the colleges where they would be going to enroll. We had representatives from our armed forces for enlistment purposes. We had our local businesses for employment, and then we had several self-starters for the entrepreneurship. And then in addition, our students. We tried to also find staff who have gone through Chandler schools, what was their experience like, so the alumni, and then as well as our students who are living it right now on that feedback and seeing them come together on the focus and agree on these 6 characteristics that could take them in any pathway, so there's not one answer for a student and they have some choice in this. So at this time, Madam President, members of the board, we'd like to open it up to you for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Nance. I think we'll start here with Mr. Worth.
So, excuse me, I'm a finance guy. I'm lost, to be honest with you. So can you dummy it down for me a little bit and tell me what the basic goal is?
Sure. Whoops. So as we're looking at, I'm going backwards. Sorry, I'm trying to find the, you got it. I'll use this. So as we were looking at how the world has changed and schooling necessarily hasn't, and so we're looking at what do we need to adapt for these future jobs for our kids that they may not even know what those jobs are currently or what the world's going to hold in place for them in the next 20 years for positions. So as we're making sure that our kids are prepared to go out, our main focus was that they would be ready for any of these pathways, and so this group identified the 6 most important skills that they felt here in Chandler met the criteria for what we felt could overlap onto any of these pathways, and it's something that we could work on with our students so when they graduate, they are proficient in them.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the board? I know we did have 2 individuals who were on our board, Ms. Love and Mr. Olive, who also contributed to this discussion and in the committee. So I want to thank both of them for spending the time to work with our community and our staff and our parents and the students in this particular project. Mrs. Bruner, I see you have some questions.
Thank you so much for coordinating a 100-person committee. That's impressive all by itself. And I just wanted to thank all the folks that were a part of this. People are busy, and that they dedicated multiple meetings and times to this effort shows how much they appreciate what everyone in the district does and how important the work is. So thank you to all those folks. And I guess I was also a little curious. I know I bring this up all the time, but I'm going to bring it up again. If maybe there's a way to weave in the grant writer into the sine wave you got going on there for a future. Maybe there's ways we can find, grants from the community that can help prepare students for post-graduation. And maybe, there's a way for that to fit in. Has that been included, or?
Actually, our grant position is being interviewed currently, so we're hoping to have someone onboarded soon. In addition, Dr. Gilbert and I had the chance to meet with other districts this summer who are a little ahead of us in the process of Portrait of a Learner, and we actually got some really good grants that other districts have applied for, which have helped kind of change some of the learning environments or activities or partnerships that were available. So we have a whole list of those that we're ready to start applying for once we have someone on.
Okay, great. And then I just wanted to say how impressed I am with, how everything played out to such a big, broad scope to give structure to things that we know we want to do, and we kind of do some things already, but to put it in with like evidence-based and embedded into what you did, to make it so that teachers don't have to create things from scratch, but can pull and modify as needed for their students. It just has such great potential. And I was kind of curious if teachers would be possibly included in creating some of those resources or modifying those at some point.
Great question. So we want, as we move forward and we look at our curriculum maps as well as aligning common assessments, we're hoping that this becomes part of the culture. Mm-hmm. And once they understand what those elements are, we're hoping that organically we want to give them a starting point that we can change those around. We get to create like a bank. This is ideal, right? A bank of what they do for each of the elements, so that we can have a kindergarten bank, first grade bank, English 9, so that we can pull from these pieces, but they're also standards aligned with an element of Portrait of a Learner embedded. So yes, we want teachers, because if teachers don't have a voice in this, it's not going to be part of our culture, and we really want it to be part of our culture as we move forward in our strategic plan.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Olive, do you have any questions?
On a couple of positive things, it was really great to have 100 people from all over the place, people that came in from out of town, people from colleges, and students that got to participate in some of that. It was actually my neighbor's kid was one of the kids that got to participate, and all the parents and everybody that gave buy-in and contributed to it. And there's none of these things that we came up with was a bad thing. I didn't go to all the sessions. I was there for one of the sessions, then parts of another couple of sessions. The negative things about it is it's pretty hard to not realize when you're being led to a foregone conclusion about where you're going with them. If you get on Battelle for Kids, they have slightly different graphics and slightly different other goals that other towns have been, that have decided when they did theirs. Are synonyms for these same exact things. So we came up with the same exact things when we went through the same exact program. So it may not be necessarily, all brand new, all us, but all these things are good things to do.
Ms. Love, did you have any comments?
Yeah, so I made it to all of them except for one. But I really appreciated talking to our students, and I think we took students from different grades and different areas of the district, which was really fun. One of the things that they talked about was, and I think parents as well, was the changes in communication, which was interesting because I think in what I observed, parents often feel like their children are bad at communicating. And children feel that their parents are bad at communicating too. But I don't think that, if we remove the judgment, it's just that they're communicating differently. And our kids today communicate more with technology and having to figure that out. So I think that was interesting in how we weaved that in terms of like, hey, like our students are a little bit more advanced in technology. They communicate through technology. Like when I was a teenager, I had to get on the phone to order a pizza. Now there's DoorDash. Right? But I thought that was really great in terms of like how they weaved that in and how we've got to become better communicators, and I think also more empathetic too, and work on that empathy piece as we advance technologically, because a lot of that does get lost. So that was really great. I got to sit with different people, like from city council, current city council representatives, was a candidate then, different students, parents, teachers, and from different viewpoints. And the communication was really good, and I think that everybody had like different viewpoints. The only thing I would say is that I don't really think that there was, as divisive as our community has become, everybody in the room got along really well, which you would think would be a positive, right? But it made me think, and I talked to another parent about this, was did we intentionally invite yes people and we didn't invite people who maybe violently or not violently disagree with us on this? And
I would answer, we intentionally invited both sides.
Okay.
Trying to get that. One of the things, and we had heard feedback from other districts as well, as once you get them in here and you're talking about this topic, it kind of brings them together. And we really did see it wasn't divisive on opinions, even when people were sharing on this is why I think this is more important or not. But we actually worked with our administrators as far as, even our parents who may have different perspectives to ensure they had them as well.
Yeah, I don't think that I got to sit with the parent who was a part of the LDS church. That would have been really interesting, just to sit down and communicate with her. But I did get to sit with some folks from Intel. I got to sit with Dr. Gilbert for one of them. That was pretty fun. But yeah, I think that I really enjoyed like the different perspective, but there's so many people, it was really hard to connect, but I really did like that the seats were assigned and that we sat at a different table at each session so that we could kind of like get to know different and diverse experiences and backgrounds. So, but it was enjoyable. I enjoyed all 3 sessions that I attended. So thank you.
Thank you for coming.
So I do have a couple of questions or comments also. When we have kindergartners start and we look at 13 years of education, and how can we predict right now what 13 years, what things are going to look like, what college is going to look like in 13 years, what employment is going to look like, what entrepreneurship is going to look like, what enlistment is going to look like. These are going to evolve over those 13 years, and that's going to happen with every single child that is coming through the district. And what I see in the Portrait of a Learner is truly some universal skills that they need to have in order to navigate that world when the world that they're going to have when they graduate. And I truly appreciate being able to see this. What we're not seeing, which I think is great, is we're not seeing rote memorization of facts in this, because the world has changed. Those are available on Google, on the internet. You can find them everywhere. But it is the application and the critical thinking skills that we have to teach the students in order for them to be successful when they graduate high school and start in on their progression through either college or employment or whatever the future may hold for them. So I really appreciate seeing that. I do want to ask though, and this might be for somebody else, curriculum-wise, there we go. where does the academic achievement piece fit into all of this? And you kind of explained it with the English language arts and the English language proficiency things, but are we going to start including math and science in this? And what is, I guess, let's look at this 5-10 years down the road, and what are we looking at?
And what we shared with you is hot off the presses. So just want to share that with you. It was our first attempt at integrating the Portrait of a Learner elements with our curriculum maps, and to show what we really want to do is provide a model for our teachers and provide them the resources in one particular content, in hopes that, as Ms. Bruner was speaking of, when we start polling our teachers for other things, curriculum map revisions, assessment revisions, and just general professional development, that there becomes this organic conversation about what are these elements, these 6 elements, and then as we do professional development as well, whether it be instructional resource coaches or through professional pathways, outside vendors sharing with them, these are our 6 pieces or elements that we're focusing on, and it's pre-K-12. So we want to make sure that this is part of our culture, and that as our students progress, we're going to be looking at potentially, and we're throwing out brainstorm ideas, so I want to just say we're looking at particular possible capstone projects or different projects that really focus on an element as there is a progression through pre-K through 12. But what we don't want to do is, at the Instructional Resource Center, what we don't want to do is say, here's another something that we've created for you, it's this top-down, we want you to do this. We'd rather say, okay, we've provided this model, which may look at this time, it's top-down, it's not, it's here's our baseline, and what can our teachers do and share with us, even if it's not even a part of the core, it's the electives in high school. What can we do? What connections can you make authentically and really bring everything together? So there will be a level of professional development involved with Portrait of a Learner, and we'll work very closely with Professional Pathways and Ms. Druck to make sure that we have some consistency as we begin professional development and we create a next generation instructional model, that this is part of that process for the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan, and the future, and be able to adapt. And like I think you hit the nail on the head with these particular 6 elements, is that they're universal and they're not set in what we may or may not know is going to happen in 10 years as far as enlistment, employment, enrolled, and entrepreneurship.
Thank you.
Can I piggyback?
Sure.
On something? Just, Dr. Edgar mentioned capstone, and if people aren't familiar with what a capstone is, don't think of it as like your thesis you had to do in college and write that. It's not an added layer on that. An example that I like to share is Basha High School has their senior projects that they work on freshman through senior year in their ELA. And they identify an issue in the community. They have to problem solve to take care of it. They're working on communication out to organize efforts to resolve it. They have critical thinking going on. They involve volunteers, and then they have to present it. So something like that is considered a capstone project when we're working.
And those seem very valuable for students. And I know that colleges look at students who have done something like this, plus it gives them some really good practical experience for the future. And I think those are really good experiences for our students. So are there any other questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Worth.
So Wendy, I hope you don't mind me using your first name, but during my career, I had a tendency to implement things over too short of a period of time. So how long will this process take to get it fully implemented?
Well, fully implemented, I hope we never reach the end goal, because I think we need to still be adaptable, modeling one of ours as the world is changing as well. Right now, we are looking at this year just trying to solidify the plan of implementation, getting everybody aware of it, building common knowledge, ways we can integrate it, and then having our committees to help us establish it in the different departments that are needed to implement it. And I do want to reinforce, this isn't just falling on our teachers and our school sites as well. Our departments are working on how can they model it as employees, you know, in human resources, in business services, with their own employees as well. So we'll probably have a more definitive plan and timeline within the next couple of months for you.
But it's at least a year period of time at least?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Just to kind of piggyback off of that, do we foresee that we'll have to go back in and change some of these definitions in the future as we adapt to society, because communication might look completely different and we may need to make some changes.
I think we need to be open to that, right? I mean, as we're working on it, if something became out of date in our definition, I feel like communication, the broad area would still be there, then we could either add to or alter it and gather a committee back to review it again.
Okay, thank you.
Great. We appreciate.
Madam President, just a couple of
yes.
comments, just real quick. Nice job, team. You did a fantastic job. I just want to take us to the logo here real quick, and this was something that was purposeful. When you talk about that adaptation, Ms. Love, you're right. That whole atom around there that contains each of the attributes, you might call them, or traits that of our learners, is forever changing. It is in motion, and it makes up structures, right? But if you'll notice the C with the apple in there, whenever you see a C with an apple, everybody says that's Chandler, right? That's the history of our traditional academic success. That's our content, our rigorous curriculum. I don't want anybody to assume this is replacing that. This is not that at all. Everything is built on a rigorous curriculum, and that's why the Chandler with the apple's in there. These are attributes that move our learners into being more productive citizens, able to be employed, enlisted, but bring those quality traits wherever they go. And if we sprinkle this, and again, in an authentic way, if we sprinkle these attributes from preschool all the way through 12th grade, when our kids leave us, they're going to say, that's a Chandler student. That's a Chandler. That's what we want them to say. They communicate well. They critically think. They have empathy for others. They're adaptable in situations where they're on teams and have to build. They collaborate well. They also know how their impact, for example, impacts other global entities, countries, whether they're in doing business or marketing and for a product in another country. When our kids go out and they have those attributes, they're going to say, we want to hire those Chandler individuals. We want them to come and enroll in our schools. So the curriculum pieces stay constant. Those are what get graded. They're driven by the standards. As Dr. Egger showed you, it's the standards that we're infusing these in. So when a teacher sees the standards she's teaching or he's teaching, they can automatically go, oh, I can hit a communication or collaborative connection here. Or I can really show where this character or this person showed empathy in this setting. Where do you see it? Have you seen that in the real world? So real connections are made authentically and not just told to teachers, this is what you need to teach. They need to teach the standards. They need to then bring these in over time where they authentically fit, because that's how students best learn, is seeing it modeled for them, authentically visualizing it through how they're being taught. And the other thing I wanted to say, so there was just as much on that logo as there was anywhere in anything else, a lot of time there. These attributes, there's 60, 70, 90, 100, whatever attributes. And Mr. Olive's right. I mean, when you come down to it, some of the attributes are similar to others that are doing this work, but they call it portrait of a graduate. We're calling it portrait of a learner because we want learning to occur in a continuum, and we want to address it. And it's just not a graduate issue. It's not that all of a sudden 1 year or we put all the work on our high schools. If we deliberately show our students these attributes, they're going to get it, they're going to be able to practice it, and they're going to be able to see it in others. And we just think even schooling is going to be better over time for kids if they're all practiced. Just think, if we can show more empathy, not only here, but in our classrooms and in society, we would be so much better off, right? But some of our students would have to see that in others before they're able to actually practice that. The other thing is, I want to compliment the group too, because I was able to present this and probably the first 5 slides to the Chamber Education Day. We hosted them for lunch. They were here. And the individuals that were from business and parents that were there, and some people that are in education too, in private as well as public, stated that they thought it was excellent. The process was done well, and they felt that was something that should be modeled as an example, not only statewide but nationwide. And I was kind of laughing because it's kind of like, no, we don't need more work. But the fact is, they were allotting the work here. If we can do that, if we can authentically move these attributes that our kids get to experience them over 13, 14 years, not because they've been held back, because some of ours start in preschool, that we will have a better shot at them being even better learners. And so, because they're going to be sitting in that seat knowing they're contributing to the overall culture of our district. So I want to thank you again, very favorable from the information and the feedback we got from our guests that were here, and I think there was over 40 of them just last Friday. So I just wanted to give you that update, because I know I have an update to do you, Wendy, on the outcome of that. So again, thank you for the work you've put into this.
Can I just
Yes,
respond
Mrs. Bruner.
I think that's kind of interesting. You made me think we kind of snuck in a 7th trait, right? Like lifelong learning by changing the name to learner. So that was really clever. But I think that's another thing you hear a lot from industry. Like, you can't just go to college and then do your job the rest of your life. You are a continual learner, and you have to have lifelong learning to continue with your work. And I think that's a great value to instill, so that's expected when our students are working. They expect that they will continue their education.
Yeah, and one of our center sees with the apple in the middle of it. That's one of our core beliefs, our core values is lifelong learning, and so that's all tied in. So I was so glad to see Chandler of the past, which is 112 years of past, come together with the Chandler of the future and help move us in a direction that works for what students are experiencing, or skills that they may need to strengthen, so they personally have transferable skills that will be successful for them.
Mr. Narducci, also thank you very much for kind of explaining the logo on this. I think that was, no, seriously, I think it was really, it was good, because it kind of brings all the elements together and kind of gives a more comprehensive view of what we're seeing here.
Can I add one more thing of the value of our students?
There was some
Worth's going to like this.
discussion on this.
That Adam piece was one of our high school students. Students from Chandler High School.
Fantastic. I love it.
And she came up with a thought process that was shared with the whole group, and everybody got moved toward it. And I happened to be in the group with her during there, and I was like, oh, that's beautiful. I mean, it really was. It stated what we want, the value of the history of our past, bringing it into the future of what we need, what we can be.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was one of our high school seniors.
Very well done.
Additionally, I would like to also thank the committee and everybody who was involved in this and all the work that was put in. I know there's a lot more work to do district-wide, and we'll be looking forward to hearing the next update. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll take about a 10-minute break, and we will be back for the regular board meeting at 7 o'clock.